On Larry King Now, the assassination of Johnny Versace star Daren Criss.
Being here right now is incredibly meta, considering that you were a huge part of, I guess, the research end of this. I was just watching your interview with Cunanan's mother and father and friends, and you're literally the only one. I mean, it's a very limited source material that we have.
The Versace family's not happy with it.
If a family member of mine was publicly murdered, and I wasn't a part of the narrative that was being broadcast to millions of people, it'd be upsetting. I never thought that I would be singing on Broadway. I was always the actor and the guy with the guitar.
How to succeed, you had to sing. Frank Lesser's great scores, but unbelievable.
The great thing about Frank Lesser, though, is he writes for character.
Plus,
I'm not going to deign to correct Larry King.
Correct me.
But just because you're a theater fan, it may behoove you in future conversations. It's Hedwig and the Angry Inch, but in your defense...
What did I say, Angry Itch?
I think it was Hangry Itch, which I kind of...
I like that better.
Is relatable.
All next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. Today's guest is actor, singer, songwriter Daren Criss. Daren shot to stardom as Blaine Anderson on the TV mega hit Glee. We also know him from his multitude of fan-favorite Broadway roles in productions like How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying and Hedwig and the Hangry Itch. And now Daren is tackling the role of Johnny Versace's killer, Andrew Cunanan, in The Assassination of Johnny Versace. American Crime Story airs Wednesdays at 10 p.m. on FX. Why are you smiling?
Well,
I'm
really excited to be here, and I'm not going to deign to correct Larry King.
Correct me.
But just because you're a theater fan, it may behoove you in future conversations. It's Hedwig and the Angry Inch, but in your defense...
What did I say, Angry Itch?
I think it was Hangry Itch, which I kind of...
I like that better.
Is relatable,
you know, they would have done better if they used my title.
They really would have been.
This is the way I get around things.
That's more the millennial title, the Hangry Itch.
They tell me that was a very difficult part.
I mean, it's certainly a fun role. It's a very complex role, so I guess difficult is a good thing. I think that's a good superlative to have for a role.
When I was at CNN, we did a lot of shows.
Oh, yeah.
Cunanan, the Versace murder. You play the killer, Andrew Cunanan. Mm-hmm. People are raving about the performance, say you're going to win an Emmy. How did you get the role? What did you think of the part?
Well, this is a very long conversation. I mean, being here right now is incredibly meta, considering that you were a huge part of, I guess, the research end of this. I was just watching your interview with Cunanan's mother and father and friends.
We the only
brother and sister. Yeah, you're literally the only one. I mean, it's a very limited source material that we have. Maureen Orth's book, you, and people who have met him in life, and even that's difficult because that kind of ran the gamut of experience. But to answer your question, I'm working with Ryan Murphy again, who I worked with on Glee. Even though when I worked with him on Glee, he was definitely my boss. He wasn't a collaborator in the sense that he was in this particular series. So in essence, this was the first time we really got to work together. But he's always been a very kind supporter of me and my work, so it was nice to be back with him. So about 3 years ago, we talked about this story. It was right before they had gone into production for the OJ series. It hadn't even become the kind of mega hit. It wasn't made yet.
I was on the OJ series.
I know you were. You look good, man.
Hemingway directed me.
Yes. Oh, yeah. He's
great.
He's great. Yeah. I mean, he's got an incredible roster of people. I was mentioning you earlier before we had the cameras rolling. The same diligence they gave to you with the wig and everything, and making sure you're wearing the same shirt as you did during the OJ case, they did for this show. There wasn't a single detail that was spared as far as rebuilding things and having the costume.
They rebuilt my set. It was nicer than my set.
Oh, yeah. Well, next time you just make sure to have Ryan Murphy's people build your stuff. He'll do you justice.
How did you see Cunanan? How did you play him?
One of the major themes that pervades our show is homophobia, but I think that's a word that we think of in more complex terms than I think the more extreme manifestations of that. It's not just hate crimes or I guess, violent outputs of homophobia. I think it's more institutionalized, internalized homophobia, and with a gay man like himself, I think whatever homophobia, at least that we show in our story, had to do more with his own inability to reconcile his differences with the world and sort of holding it against the world that he had to deal with something, and not necessarily his homosexuality, but his socioeconomic background, and how it was all kind of tied together in this sort of cosmic hand against him, and how that created resentment. And
he killed 5 other people.
5 men, yeah. 4
Why did he kill Versace?
Well, such is the question of our show, and such is the question, was the question 20 years ago, and people still wonder. It's a very loaded thing. I mean,
just that he killed them, so they don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, he did. He certainly did. We know he did murder him. Our show, luckily, when you have 9 hours to deal with something, you can really. It's not a 2-hour movie. We have to make this as simple and palatable as possible. It is very complex. To boil it down into simple terms, you know, this is a story about the have and the have-nots. And Andrew glamorized and idolized this world that he really didn't have access to, but had all the gifts to be close to it. He was smart, he was intelligent, he was charming, he had all these resources to get involved with this world, but because of so many other things within himself, he could never quite reach the station that he desired, and so he had to take it from other people. If he couldn't have something, he had to take it.
I know Marie North very well.
As I've gotten to know her a little well as well.
She's quite a girl.
Yeah, she
quite
is.
a lady.
Quite a lady,
Tim
indeed.
Russert's widow.
Yes, yeah, that's what I...
The Versace family's not happy with it.
No, yeah.
What do they say is wrong about it?
Well, first of all, I imagine that if any of the other people's families, you know, of the 4 other men, had the public position that the Versaces did, I'm sure they would say the same thing, and they would have every right to. If a family member of mine was publicly murdered, and I wasn't a part of the narrative that was being broadcasted to millions of people, yeah, it'd be upsetting.
The story is about Cunanan, right?
There's the rub right there. So yeah, I think, you know, there's a lot about the Versaces in the show, but a lot of it follows this sort of character study, this character piece of Andrew Cunanan. And the truth is, we know what happened at point A and point B. We don't know what was said in those rooms, what was said in the car, and we'll never know. And I think what we're trying to convey in our show is less an expose of what really happened, because we could never deign to say that we know the truth. We'll never know. But what we can do is tell the narrative arc of what had to have happened emotionally, psychologically, for point A and point B to be connected. And that's what interests me. You know, we'll never know. And I think the Versaces are more concerned with the way their family's being portrayed, and I think we portray them with a great deal of respect and love. And
you shot a lot in Miami Beach, right?
We did, yeah, right on the very steps, the very house.
You used to do a radio show right from that houseboat.
Not too shabby, Larry. You know how to pick 'em, man.
Those were some days.
I bet.
You said about this role, you said there are a lot of similarities between us, you and Cunanan,
Yeah.
that I like to remind myself and other people of what it is to want what you can't have, that I get who doesn't know what it's like to feel unloved or want to rise above your station or just on a very simple level be liked.
Sure.
Did you like Cunanan?
Well, it's my job to like Cunanan. And I think anybody that knew him, his family or friends, there was so much to like. Now, granted, when you juxtapose that against what he's famous for, it's kind of hard to compromise the two. But we do have to remember that Andrew didn't follow the typical prerequisites of a killer. You know, if you look at the Jeffrey Dahmers of the world, the Mansons, or anybody that's famous for this psychopathic behavior, there's a lot of almost stereotypical patterns in their youth that kind of point to what they did. Whereas Andrew was this very vibrant, bon vivant, loved kid. And you really have to wonder, what's so heartbreaking about this story, other than the obvious tragedies of these homicides, is you go, wait, so if there was all these good things happening, your heart breaks more than it does get angry, because it's just this wasted potential, something so positive that turned into something so destructive. So in that sense, yeah, I have to look towards the best part of him. And as an actor, I'm in the business of empathy. That is my livelihood. my actual opinions of morality. I mean, well, I don't have to conceal. I mean, obviously, these acts were deplorable and unforgivable. But when you look deeper and when you are trying to find the common denominators between yourself and another person, you're going to find more in common than not. Yeah.
After the break, we'll talk about Daren's musical theater roots and what the future holds for the assassination of Gianni Versace's star. We'll be right back on this edition of Larry King Now.
I'm so sorry. I have a tendency to sound like I'm in a lecture hall. It's why I'm not very popular with people my own age.
I find that very hard to believe.
No, it's true. I've always preferred the company of older men.
May I buy you another glass of wine?
I leave you alone for 1 second and you find the most handsome man in the house. I'm Lincoln.
A pleasure.
This is Andrew. He's a very clever young man.
I'm Gallo, if anyone cares.
We're having dinner after the show. You'll join us?
I'd be happy to join, if you don't mind.
That was a clip from the assassination of Gianni Versace from the American Crime Stories series, and our guest Daren Criss plays Andrew Cunanan, who shot and killed Gianni Versace. Your first love, though, is theater, right?
Of course. As many actors and gypsies in my profession were.
Are you first a singer?
No. I actually kind of fell into that backwards. I was always an actor and a musician. I was a classical violinist for most of my young life, and I was always that actor that liked musical theater. And I liked to sing. I thought I had a pretty good ear, but I never ever thought that I would. You know, I would see Broadway shows or listen to Broadway albums and hear these men and women with these big voices, these Rodgers and Hammerstein, very beautiful, big, robust voices. And I was sort of more of a rock and roll guy. I needed a microphone and a guitar. That made sense to me. But I never thought that Broadway would ever incorporate that ability. Little would I know that later in my life that would be a skill that would behoove me in the theater. But I never thought that I would be singing on Broadway. I was always the actor and the guy with the guitar.
How to succeed? You had to sing. Frank Lesser's great scores, but unbelievable.
The great thing about Frank Lesser, though, is he writes for character, and I think, and not to say that Bobby Morse or Daniel Radcliffe aren't, you know, they definitely sing. It's all about the character acting, and I remember when I took that role, I was happy because I was like, oh, good, it's actors who can sing, not singers who can act. I'm not going to be doing Billy Bigelow anytime soon, you know, or Curly from Oklahoma. So it's sort of picking your battles where it works, and that's why I ended up doing Hedwig as well, or I should say Hedwig and the Hangry Inch, or whatever it is.
What is the title?
It's Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and you can Wikipedia where that name
What is an inch?
Oh, my man, we don't have enough time to get into
Okay.
that, but we can definitely encourage you to go on the internet and ask her, she'll know. But that's another role. That's more of a rock and roll punk rock musical, and that's kind of more up my alley. And I grew up, you know, thrashing away on guitars. So that was.
Where'd you grow up?
San Francisco. I'm a NorCal kid through and through.
What are you working on now?
Just you know, I've really enjoyed talking about and promoting. I don't think of it as promoting. It's fun to sort of have these almost exit interviews with my relationship with this story and this character. Which was most of last year, and so getting to speak to people like yourself, which has been so amazing because it's sort of a full circle moment.
So you saw my interviews with his relatives?
Oh yeah, I just rewatched them on the way here. I mean, it's literally the only hard video we have of communication between both parents, and they're featured in the show. And you know, I think when you see, even though it's just a very short glimpse into their lives, you can sort of start piecing together a lot of the behavioral patterns that Andrew had just from those interviews alone. So anyway, I'm doing that, and I'm a musician too, so I'm working on music and just having a grand old time being a gypsy.
Our guest is Daren Criss. We'll talk about strange fan encounters, guilty pleasures, and biggest risks. We'll play a game of If You Only Knew. He stars in the assassination of Gianni Versace. Daren Criss is the guest. We'll be right back. We're back with Daren Criss, the extraordinarily talented Daren Criss. We play a little game of If You Only Knew. Okay, last time you were starstruck.
Oh, it happens all the time. Probably Golden Globes, it's always the younger folks that aren't hardened by stardom yet. I think so. When you run into any of the Stranger Things kids, you always get starstruck because you're like, you guys are
Funniest or strangest fan encounter?
I got licked in the face once.
You got
licked in the face. My face got licked, I should say.
By?
Get my prepositions right. By just a very excitable young man. It was very even. I was shocked, but also kind of admittedly impressed by the chutzpah of this guy.
Person from history you'd most like to portray on screen?
That's tough. All the people that I admire from history, I wouldn't want to, dismantle their good name by the likes of me portraying them. So I'm very, very wary with that.
Favorite designers?
Ooh.
You like Versace?
Yeah, I definitely have grown into a big Versace fan now that I've grown so close to his narrative. Oh gosh, I've been put on the spot. I can't think of anybody right now, but
you don't have to have it. You don't. By the way, this.
I'm going to think about it in a cold sweat at night.
You don't have to ask.
Well, I'm going to wake up
You
and
don't
go,
have to
I
answer.
know the answer. Yeah.
Most difficult scene to shoot for the assassination of Johnny Versace?
I think a lot of the stuff with Lee Miglin was
With who?
Lee Miglin, who was the third man that he murdered, which was with with Mike Farrell, aka B.J. Honeycutt. That was kind of wild. I won't get into why, but that was very difficult.
Place we'd find you on a day off?
At home. Yeah, it's not very fun. I guess a lot of people would be at home, right?
If you could speak to one animal, what would it be?
Yeah, it depends. Is like a real animal, like an actual animal.
I think I speak to a hippopotamus.
And why is that?
What's it like walking around like that?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not handsome. You know you're not
Right.
handsome.
They're fast though. They can run real
What
fast.
attracts you in the opposite sex of a hippo?
There you go. Oh, that was the question. I thought you were asking me, and I was like, I'm still stuck on the hippo thing. I don't know. I'd want to talk to a penguin, maybe.
Penguin, yeah.
Yeah, I just
What's
want.
that like, flapping around?
Who are your friends? Like, what do you do all day when you're just kind of hanging out in the Arctic? Like, what's your plan here?
Best advice you ever got?
Take responsibility for your actions.
What was the worst advice you ever got?
I don't know. I don't know. Give me some bad advice.
Don't go into theater.
All right, thank you. There you go.
Who's an actor you're dying to share the screen with?
Oh man, so many. I've always said this. I've always said this because he's somebody from the Bay Area that I've always admired. He's had such an amazing career, and this year he's kind of in the center of the spotlight, and he's about to win an Oscar. So I don't want to jinx that for him, but Sam Rockwell has always been one of my favorite actors.
He's gonna win.
Yeah, I hope so.
There's two sure winners: him and the Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah, he'll be all right. And even if he didn't, he's been killing it for a long time. So
Music we'd be surprised you listen to.
I don't know if anybody would be surprised, at least people that know me, because I'm such a voracious music consumer, and I sort of have a insatiable appetite for culture in general. So
Like all kinds of music.
Yeah, I'm very, very deep into a lot of stuff. I don't know, people maybe be surprised that I try and educate myself as much with, like I look at it like an educational project because I didn't grow up listening to it, but country western music, which is super popular outside of my circles, but there's so much to be learned from what's going on in the country western scene, so yeah.
Person from history you'd like to take to lunch?
Oh, Sammy Davis Jr.
Knew him well.
I bet. I'm gonna have so many questions later. That's so cool.
What would you choose as
Fosse.
your last meal?
Last meal, like a really, really nice traditional Japanese meal, like a kaiseki, like very, very ancient samurai kind of stuff. Like.
You're a little weird, Darren.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's a compliment.
I appreciate that.
Person who inspires you the most?
I know Larry King's doing pretty well.
That's a nice choice.
Yeah. It was the hippopotamus coming. That's what got it.
I'm surprised I came up with it. And, I know why. Or rhino. I just saw Black Panther.
Yeah, so good.
Whoa.
I can't wait to see it again.
And those rhinos.
Oh, yeah, right?
How the hell do they ride those rhinos?
Yeah, I don't want to burst your bubble. Pretty sure those rhinos weren't real, but for the purpose of this interview, I'm going to go ahead and tell you those are very real rhinos.
Maybe they weren't, but that's a great movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. You know what, Ask a Rhino? You know they always have like a bird buddy, and like in comic books or whatever, there's always like a bird. I just want to be like, what's your who's looking out for who here? who's wearing the pants in this relationship?
That movie's special.
It is a special movie. Well, it's more than a movie. That's what makes it so great. And it's also just a damn good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it again. Wakanda forever.
In our final moments, Darren will answer your fan questions from social media. Stay with us on this edition of Larry King Now. We're back with Daren Criss. He stars and plays the killer in the role of Johnny Versace's killer, Andrew Cunanan, in the assassination of Johnny Versace on the American Crime Story series. Airs Wednesdays, 10 p.m. on FX. By the way, Mr. Murphy's going to Netflix.
Yes, he is. The $300 million man. I know.
You'll be working with him there, I'm sure.
From your mouth to God's ears.
We have a few social media questions for you. Alan Endy on Facebook. What has been your favorite role to play?
I've been really, really lucky so far. I feel like I keep outdoing the last role. I'm particularly affectionate towards Hedwig, mainly because Hedwig has a huge kind of cult following, fan base.
How long did you do it?
I did it for about 6 or 7 months when I did it on Broadway, and I did it for about a month or two when it was on tour. I was a huge fan of that show growing up. The movie meant a great deal to me when I was a teenager, and so getting to actually do it myself, I felt like I was joining the Beatles.
It was a movie?
Yeah, it was a very successful movie in the early 2000s. Yeah. So yeah, I felt like I got to join the Beatles. It was a really cool moment for me.
Sammy V on Twitter. What are your goals for the future? More music, more TV, more film, more Broadway?
Well, I'm lucky that that's even part of the question. Versatility is and keeping things as mixed as possible is really the goal. So if you ask me if I'm a musician, I'll tell you I'm an actor. If you ask me if I'm an actor, I'll tell you I'm a songwriter. And I just like keeping people and myself off balance. So hopefully a healthy mix of all of them. But it really just depends on the quality of the product. We'll see.
At Smith WFB on Twitter, do your parents watch American Crime Story? And if so, what do they think?
Well, I had a talk with them when we started shooting this, saying that this was not going to be an easy thing to watch, because it's not, whether you're my parents or not. It dives into some very dark, very painful things. I think, well, obviously, I know they're very proud, and I should think that no matter what kind of material I'm dealing with, they'd be happy to support and happy to watch. So I think it doesn't make it any easier to watch some of these things, but luckily, the show isn't exploiting dark things for shock value. It's not done cheaply, literally, it's not done cheaply. So there's a quality of the content that I think makes it easy for them to enjoy, I guess.
Real Steffi on NE28 on Twitter. If you ever have to choose between actor or musician, what would be your choice?
I would never be able to, but if I really, really, really had to, as much as it would kill me, I'd probably... Acting is a passive career, not for the most part, but you have to wait for roles. I got the winning lottery ticket with playing something as complex and rich and with so much breadth as this particular project. But that's something that I have no control over. The fact that it came my way, I'm just super lucky. Whereas music is a proactive lifestyle where I can make music on my own. If my acting career got stripped away from me, I'd still have my piano, I'd still have my guitar. So if I had to choose, I'd say music. But if it actually happened, I'd probably change my mind immediately.
Carla Booklove on Twitter. Were there any uncomfortable moments while filming American Crime Story?
Of course, there was a lot of uncomfortable moments, but we would try and keep morale high on set. I'm kind of a practical joker, or maybe to quote Larry King, I'm a little weird, so I have a lot of fun with the
When I say weird, it's a compliment.
Oh, and I took it as such. Thank you.
I'm weird.
It takes one to know one, exactly. No,
damn right.
I see it. We see our own, but we try to keep things as light as possible on set.
20 Emma on Twitter. What's your favorite smell?
Oh, that's a good question. Man, what are the big ones? Some people really love new car smell. Bacon, of course. Bacon, new car smell.
New car.
I love a new guitar. The wood and the varnish on a new, beautiful
gasoline
guitar. You like gas? It's a very divisive choice. Some people really hate it. I dig it. I grew up. My parents grew up. when I grew up, we had these like very old diesel cars.
Oh, yeah?
That smell, great.
Turpentine.
Smell. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about turpentine. Were you huffing turpentine back in the day?
Sometimes paint.
Paint? Oh, yeah, paint. Some paints, I think, depends the kind. I don't know if you're supposed to be sniffing that stuff, man.
Wind at the beach.
Wind at the beach. Depending what kind of beach. Some beaches I would recommend you not be sniffing. Yeah, I'll stick with the guitar smell. Maybe that's the romantic in me. But the weirdo in me that wants to relate to you will say, yeah, sure, turpentine and smelly beaches.
Thanks a lot. Big thanks to my guest, Daren Criss. Be sure to see him in The Assassination of Johnny Versace, American Crime Story. The limited series airs Wednesdays at 10 o'clock p.m. on FX. And as always, you can find me on Twitter at King's Things. I'll see you next time.